to the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
Chuck Conrad with a kickoff. Roy is a strong leg, end over end. Sanders takes it 1 yard deep to the end zone. Up the middle of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. He's at the 40, he's at 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 45, 40, 50, 10, 5, touchdown. Just like last year, the same story. Roll out.
Here's your host, Chris Houston.
Welcome back to the Heisman Trophy podcast, everyone. Today we are doing something completely different, a Division II football extravaganza. You know, I think we sometimes forget that there are these other levels of college football, the FCS, Division II, Division III, junior college, NAIA. And at these levels, there is a ton of great football being played. There are a ton of great players. And if you don't believe me, just look at Heisman history. All you old-timers out there, you remember Neil Lomax, right? He was from Division I AA, which was what the FCS was called back then. 1AA Portland State. He was a prolific passer in 1980, finished 7th in the Heisman race, went on to become a starter for the St. Louis Cardinals in the NFL. Go forward about 6 years to 1985, Joe Dudek of Plymouth State, Division III. He finished 9th in the Heisman Trophy vote that year after breaking the all-time NCAA scoring record for all levels. He had one of the great marketing slogans of all time, "What the heck, vote Dudek." Sports Illustrated endorsed him on their cover. A lot of the attention worked. He's still the only Division III player to finish in the top 10 of the Heisman vote. Then there's Holy Cross's Gordy Lockbaum. He finished 5th in the Heisman vote in 1986, and then he finished 3rd as a finalist in 1987. He was a two-way player. And then most recently, there was the late, great Steve McNair of 1AA Alcorn State, who finished 3rd in the Heisman Trophy voting in 1994. And of course, he went on to a stellar NFL career and almost won a Super Bowl. So we've had FCS players in the Heisman vote. We've had Division III players. We've never had a Division II player, but we are about to have a Division II extravaganza on this show, so you never know what might happen. In a little bit, we're going to kick things off with our featured guest, Coach Tony Annese of the Ferris State Bulldogs. They are the winners of 3 of the last 4 Division II national championships, currently 5-0 and sitting atop the leaderboard in that division. I mean, this guy's a coaching legend. I mean, he has built a dynasty at Ferris State, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing about his coaching philosophy. We'll also be talking to one of the reasons for Ferris State's success, current quarterback Wyatt Bauer, a redshirt freshman who is off to a great start through 5 games. He's going to tell us what it's like to be a quarterback for a Division II powerhouse. And then we're going to close things out with one of the leading experts on Division II football, Chuck Bittner of D2Football.com. But first, I want to fill you in on how you can get involved in this year's race for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, obviously, you should listen to this podcast if you want to be clued in on what's going on with the Heisman race and really all of college football. But if you go to HeismanFanVote.com, you can vote for your favorite player for the Heisman Trophy. The player who wins this fan vote will receive one first-place ballot in the overall tally of the Heisman vote. And, you know, there have been some really close races in Heisman history, so every vote counts. So be sure to go to that website or go to social media to let your voice be heard. If you're on social media, just tag the Heisman Trophy at Heisman Trophy, and they'll register your vote. Now, I see this as a pretty clear test of which fan base is the strongest out there. Doesn't really matter what your team's record is. Doesn't really matter if you have a player who is considered Heisman worthy by all the pundits out there. This is your chance to beat your hated rival. So what are you waiting for? Just get out there and vote for the Heisman. And while you're at it, please hit like or subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family about the Heisman Trophy podcast. We would really appreciate it. We'll be right back with Coach Annese. Take it away, Arch.
This is Archie Griffin, 1974, 1975's Heisman Trophy winner, and you're listening to the official Heisman podcast.
The Heisman is handed out every December, but the history of the trophy lives year-round at Heisman.com. Home to the most iconic trophy in sports, Heisman.com tells the story of all 90 of our winners and features news, bios, and statistics on all your favorite Heisman heroes. Heisman.com also highlights our Heisman humanitarians, the many charities supported by the Heisman Trust, and so much more. Make Heisman.com your first stop for all things Heisman.
All right, our D2 extravaganza gets underway with Coach Tony Annese, who has led Ferris State since 2012, and he has turned it into a Division II powerhouse. National titles in 2021, 22, and 24. That's last year. That's 3 of the last 4 national titles at the Division II level, folks. Before Ferris, he won 2 NGCAA championships at Grand Rapids Community College and 3 Michigan State titles at the high school level. His reputation is for player development, continuity, and relentless standards. And once again, his Bulldogs are atop the Division II rankings with a 5-0 record, and they are dominating the competition in the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference as usual. Coach, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you having me.
You're in Big Rapids, Michigan. A lot of people have heard of Grand Rapids. I haven't heard of Big Rapids. Is it a rivalry thing there as far as one Rapids being bigger than the other?
Yeah, Grand Rapids is a lot bigger than Big Rapids. Grand Rapids is 45 miles south of here. It's the second biggest city in the state of Michigan, and Big Rapids is a tiny little place, kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but Ferris State's had an unbelievable tradition academically and athletically, and so we've been around a long time, and like in the late 1800s, it was originated, and so it's been around a long time. But yeah, Grand Rapids is a much bigger city.
Well, you know, your coaching record is so impressive. What got you into coaching football, and who were some of your main influences as a coach?
So what got me in, it was my father, who was a high school teacher, administrator, and head football coach for 26 years. And he was the main influence for me as well. Although, you know, I have 3 brothers, all of which chose not to be in education. They wanted to make a little bit more money than I made in my life. And so they went a different area, because my dad's like, don't get into education. But I didn't listen to him much. And so I was a high school teacher for 25 years before I became a college coach. But you know, I just saw what kind of impact he had in the community I grew up in. And I remember going to Kmart or McDonald's and running into former players of my dad's. And as we were out and about, they would all say, "Hey, what an impact you had on my life." And so I'm like, man, that's the greatest thing on earth, you know, to have that kind of positive, impression on young people. And so people say that, you know, a coach does more influencing and impacting young people in 1 year what most people have in a lifetime. So.
Very true. Very true. You know, I want to talk about your coaching philosophy a bit. If I were trying to reverse engineer what you've done at Ferris State, what core philosophy would I need to guide me? What are the principles that your program is built on?
Well, our 4 core values are faith, order, love, and discipline. And that, you know, is an acronym for FOLD. So our motto is to be in the fold, which means to be intertwined together and in a, you know, profound brotherhood. And then faith, order, and love and discipline are the you know, obviously the benchmarks to our program. When I took the job, just an example of faith, when I took the job, you know, there was nothing that indicated that we would be anything. So the only thing I really could sell was myself and my staff, and that our guys had to have faith that something significant was going to happen. And so that's what we sold, and it's worked.
You know, in a coaching profession that is filled with people who are constantly climbing, it seemed that you were very patient at the high school level. You seemed very content there. And then you went to the junior college level before going to Ferris State. It doesn't seem like you're one of those who is angling for new positions all the time. Are you just happy where you are, or is it just a matter of you maybe not getting the attention that you would typically get for your success?
Well, yeah, it's a little late to the college game, right? So, you know, like Kurt Signetti was a D2 coach in 2016, you know, when we were actually in the semifinals. That's the first time we made the semifinals. So, but he was a college coach who had been at Alabama, and he had, you know, obviously came back to IUP, which is a Division II school, and then moved up from there. Where I was, you know, I was new to the college game. You know, I started Division II football here in 2012. And so being a 25-year high school teacher and a 22-year high school head coach, it gave me great connections in the state of Michigan. And I was already in the Michigan High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame, prior to even being a college coach. So, but I didn't, when I was a high school coach, I never really thought about being a college coach. Truthfully, it wasn't a force in my mindset. I have 4 kids. And so I'm like, I never really want to give my life away to being a college football coach. I love my opportunity to be in a high school building. And I actually was a head football coach at Muskegon High School, which is a powerhouse. Mm-hmm. And my kids went to a neighboring school at Whitehall. And so I was a head football coach at Muskegon, and I was the head basketball coach at Whitehall. So I coached 3 of my kids in varsity basketball. And so, those things are like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, right? I get to coach my kids in a varsity sport. So that was pretty cool. And then when the opportunity arose to be a college coach, I'm like, okay, well, we'll see what happens with this. But it's been great. But I'm not a person that is always looking. It would have to be a really good situation. And truthfully, people say, well, why didn't you jump to the FCS? Because, obviously there's a step from here to there, sure. Right? And so people have asked me, why don't I jump to FCS? Well, in 2023, we went to Montana and played at Montana in front of 20, I think they broke their all-time attendance record there, 28,000 people. It was the loudest venue we've ever been. And we played them right down to the wire. And I'm like, well, Montana's an FCS school. Montana actually went to the national championship game that year. So my deduction was we're a lot better than a lot of FCS schools, which is probably true. And so, so then it would say, okay, well, you have to take a really good job to ever leave Ferris, and that really good job, in my opinion, hasn't been there for me.
Wow, it just seems like you just love coaching. You coach basketball, coach football. What is it about coaching that you love so much?
Well, that's how I grew up. I have I have 3 brothers and a sister, and that was everything. Our entire existence, and mm-hmm. And so I was raised that way. Everything was competition, whether we were golfing together, playing basketball together, playing baseball. We all played. All my brothers and I played 3 sports in high school. And we were really close in age, so we just played sports all the time. And so my dad being a teacher and a coach. My mom being a crazy, sports, advocate. So that's how we grew up. And so it's still that way. Mm-hmm. I'll talk to my brothers, and, they're either, golfing today, or definitely, turning on the TV to watch, the Tigers play today, or, watching college football. We had a bye week the other couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't wait for the bye week to sit there and watch Ole Miss play. I watched it from beginning to end, and
right.
And I just, that's just the way we're built. And there's nothing there's nothing in our world that's more important than being a part of athletics. Sure. And even if it's the U.S. Open and tennis, or the Ryder Cup and golf, I'm glued to those things when I have time to be glued to them.
I love that. You've won big everywhere you've coached. Usually you have a couple seasons, and then you just start winning big at the places that you coach at. You started at Ferris State in 2012. A couple years later, 2014, you started averaging 12 wins per year since then. But it was only in 2021 that you started winning titles. You kind of got over the hump. Now you've won 3 of the last 4. It makes me think about great John Wooden, who took 13 years at UCLA before he won his first national championship. And he said that was the hardest part, was learning how to win. What moved Ferris from being really good at Division II to really be in a dynasty right now?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Sometimes it does take that kind of time, like I was a high school head coach for 22 years, and my first state championship was 2004, which it seems like a while ago now, but I was in the business for a while as a head coach. I was a head coach when I was 26. My first stop was my only losing season. We were 4-5 my first year at Montrose High School, and then we lost the first two the next year. So we were 4-7, and then we won 61 regular season games in a row. So that's wild. Like, you won 61 regular season games in a row, but we didn't win a state championship during that whole run. Which is like, well, what's missing here? So, that's a interesting thought. I just think you just stay focused. Like in 2016, we were in the semifinals. In 2018, we were in the national championship game, lost 49-47 to Valdosta, and it's like, wow. That was a heartbreaking loss. But you just keep on working, and that's the way our guys are. That's the way our coaches are. That's the way our players are. That everybody's like, how do you keep your guys focused? How do you keep them, disciplined to continue to, have such a high standard and not fall off? Well, if you're around here, like, you wouldn't have known that we won a national championship last year. You wouldn't know that we won, in 2021 and 2022. We don't, we never like sit on our past laurels. We don't ever feel, entitled. None of that stuff happens here. And part of it stems from the fact that, we do have a chip on our shoulder in everything we do. Our stadium is pretty mediocre. Our facilities are mediocre, and I always just sell recruits on the fact that if you want to win, it's a pretty proven fact that we're the winningest program in all of D2 right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't really need the facilities if you're winning. I mean, it really kind of puts a lie to the old claim that you need facilities to win. But let's zoom a little bit on this season. You guys are 5-0. You're ranked number 1, defending national champs. What would you say is the identity of this team on offense and defense? And if I walked into your Tuesday practice today, what would jump out first at me?
I'll answer the last question first. The level of intensity and competitiveness in practice. Like, you're going to, we hit the field here in an hour and 15 minutes, and you're going to see like a team that just works at practice like you wouldn't believe. And that's what's really, been a blessing for me. Like, I mean, I don't know how to even describe it. Like, we are the best practice team in America. And I've been to watch Alabama. I've been to watch Michigan. I've been to watch Florida, Tennessee, you name it. I've been to a lot of college practices. We are the best practice team in America. And so you're going to see a high-paced practice. You're going to see people with great intensity. You're going to see them so competitive, that we're competitive in the weight room, competitive, on the practice field. And that's a big force in who we are. And then the first question now, what'd you ask? Because I got to go back.
Just what would you say is the identity of this team on offense and defense?
Yeah, so we try to build it to be very physical. And so we need to win with the offensive line, because that's, where you win with physicality, and with the defensive line. So right now we're like number 1 in the nation in scoring offense and total offense, both. But we run the ball, very effectively. We don't just sit and run it every down. But, we're top 5 in the nation in rush yardage, and I think we're second in the nation in stopping the run. And so those are things that, you have control over, how you build your system, but also, what you do in the weight room, And I always tell people, like, in 2015, we had a guy by the name of Justin Zimmer who ended up playing the NFL. And so Zim in 16, in the spring of 16, we tried to get our guys into bigger universities for pro days. So he went to the University of Michigan for his pro day. And he was the last guy to get under the bench at 225 because they did it alphabetically. And they obviously Z is the last letter in the alphabet. So I was there and they announced Justin Zimmer from Ferris State. And the most anybody had done is 27 at 225. And Zim got under the bar and did it 44 times.
Wow.
44 times.
That's insane.
From Ferris State. Yeah. And so that's just the way we are. That's the perfect example of who we are. Like Zach Sealer, who was the most valuable player for the Miami Dolphins this past year. He was the strongest player for the Dolphins, of anybody on the team. He's the strongest player on the team. And so, that's how we're built. And so that's happened at Ferris, right? Justin Zimmer, Zach Sealer, Tavier Thomas, who plays for the Vikings, Caleb Murphy, who broke the all-time sack record, Jason Vanderlaan, who's the leading rusher in the history of college football as a quarterback. All those guys are Ferris State guys. So that's the culture you build. That's the belief system, the mentality that you build. And that's who we are. That's who we are.
Wow. Surely there must be pilgrimages from other coaching staffs, even up at the higher levels, coming to see what your secret sauce is. Are people coming to check out what you do at practice, what you do to prepare your team?
Yeah, we've had Division I teams here just talking X's and O's. We've also had Division I people that we travel to ask questions. But yeah, the whole how's this happening thing is a question I have to answer a lot. And the last core value, love. The third core value, love, and the fold. I always just say the catalyst of our greatness is love. And so that's been the force that, is the most powerful force that we have.
If someone's coming to ask you about this and you tell them it's love, if say it's some FBS coach, are they like, no, but seriously, what's your secret?
No, I think they understand it. I think most people understand, a lot of young people grow up in challenged backgrounds. They need love. Love is power. I mean, love is power. You can think back, or anybody can think back about, all right, who are the significant people that you love, or who, how does that make an impact? Like my mom and dad are people that love me a lot. And my brothers and sister are people that love me a lot. And my kids and family and grandchildren now, and everybody, it's like when you have that kind of love. And I look at my grandchildren now, I got 3 of them, and I get to see them on a Sunday morning. I mean, that's empowering. And so, then you got to translate into, well, how can I empower my players to feel better about life? To do great in college as a student athlete, to do great on the field, to be validated as a player on the Ferris State football team, even if you don't play. Like everybody's talking about Trinidad Chambliss, who's, I love dearly, but Trinidad, he was here 4 years, and so a lot of people would say, oh, well, he should have left, after second year when he didn't play, or that kind of thing. No, that's not the way we're built, And he grew every day. Like it's easy to grow when you're the man, right? When you get a million reps and that's, but it's hard to grow when you're sitting back and not having opportunities. Zach Sealer, is a superstar for the Miami Dolphins. It took him 30 games to play at Ferris State, 30.
Wow.
And so, a lot of young people are like, I'm out of there. I'm going to stop growing. I'm going to stop being committed. And love is the thing that really makes people want to be a part of something great.
Yeah. We were actually going to speak with Trinidad Chambliss for this episode originally. We had some scheduling conflicts, so it didn't work out, but I'm still curious to hear more about him. How did you go about recruiting him, and what's it like now to see him doing so well at the FBS level for Ole Miss?
Well, not surprised by it. Everybody's like, oh, are you surprised? Heck, no, I'm not surprised. I mean, we've had NFL players just, be AFC and NFC players of the week, and so not surprised at all. And very proud, though, very proud. It's a hard thing to go through when you're losing a player. We lost 5 offensive players alone, 5 offensive starters to FBS schools and 3 starters to FBS schools on defense. And so it's hard, and I'm not going to lie to you. Like some of them I felt betrayed by. It's just the nature of what you feel. But with Trinidad, I never felt betrayed because him and his family handled it so well. He was getting all these opportunities. We played in the national championship game in December 21st, and by December 25th, he was getting all these phone calls and people bombarding him, and he wasn't even in the portal. And I'm like, well, dude, I mean, that might be tampering, who's calling you kind of deal. But people don't care, right? They got all these representatives to contact, reach out. And So he was literally in tears by like December 27th, like, Coach, I don't want to leave, and I said, maybe you should test the waters and see what kind of money there is involved. And he's like, Coach, I don't want to leave. So he didn't leave. He didn't get in the portal then. And then as time progressed, the pressure of, first off, the amount of money, 1, 2, the pressure of, having opportunities at the higher level. And I just said to him, I said, son, the biggest thing you want to think about is where can you best be in the NFL? Okay. And being very honest with him, I didn't know, I don't know the answer to that question, because if you're the, Harlan Hill Trophy winner in Division II, you probably got a good chance to be in the NFL. So you got that opportunity. Whereas if you go to a place, a Power 4 program, and they already have their starter, this is the spring, mind you, right?
Yeah.
So you're leaving in the spring and they already have their starter. You're taking a big risk. You may not play at all. Trinidad bet on himself. Austin Simmons got hurt. The rest is history. He's obviously taken his opportunity and ran with it. And I'm so proud of him for that. And I love him and love his family. And he's like family for me, truthfully. And, he's always, they kind of quiz him in his press conferences, like, what's different, and he'll never say anything negative about Ferris. It's everything positive about Ferris. So he's handled it, extraordinarily positive way, and I'm really proud of him. But not surprised. Knew he had the skill set to do it, and that can happen. In college football at Division II level, there's probably 20 to 30 guys that can do it at a very high level every year.
Well, he's certainly an exciting player, fun to watch. Like you mentioned, you lost a bunch of other guys. I think you had the most players leaving to go from Division II to the FBS level of any team on Division II. 6 total. Like you mentioned, you lost the 2 offensive line anchors, Lawrence Haddar, Bryce George to Michigan and Iowa. Your leading linebacker, Sefa Sayapaya, to Western Michigan, top back Cannon Katzer to West Virginia, starting corner Lento Smith to Tulsa. That's a lot in one offseason. How do you adjust to that and find a way to replace those guys so quickly?
Howard Van, Tyrese Hunt Thompson to North Texas, and Jacarvis Alexander to Jacksonville State. So yeah, 6 of them, 8 of them.
8 of them, yeah.
Yeah, 8 of them. So I don't know, like literally. Like in the spring, I'm like, do I want to do that? Do I want to keep doing this? Is there, is there something I should be doing different, or, should I just bow out? Because loyalty is important to me. And when I kind of get a feeling, I can't help but, have my feelings hurt a little bit, because I tell people, I want people to feel like this is the best place on earth, and hoisting that trophy. 3 times is one of the greatest experiences of my life. And so I wanted my guys to feel like, hey, there's not a dollar value you can put on being the best, whatever it might be. Winning a pickleball national championship would be, great, or whatever it is, shooting par on a hard course, whatever it is, it's all just levels of achievement, right? And so I want our guys to feel like, man, Ferris is the best place on earth, but I get it, and it's hard, but our guys, when everybody left, our guys just, they didn't stop growing, and so that's how we're built. Our offensive line lost 2 players to the Big Ten, one to Michigan, one to Iowa, and our offensive line is better than last year. And so think about that. So
you're doing something right.
Yeah, coaches don't stop coaching, players don't stop growing, and we're plugging in good players, and I feel great about what everybody's done so far this year. It's just a matter of not feeling sorry for yourself and continue to work.
Speaking of plugging in, tell me about redshirt freshman quarterback Wyatt Bauer, off to a great start as a first-year starter. We're going to talk to him a little later. What kind of future do you think he has?
Well, I hope it stays here in a really positive situation. We grow quarterbacks at an extraordinarily high level here, and that's important. Our system's built to feature quarterbacks. We've got a offensive system where we like to have a dual threat guy. We like to, run play action passes. We got explosive plays, and he can do all those things very much similar to who we've had, whether, you name it, Trinidad Chambliss or Malik Mitchell or Jared Bernhardt, who played, for the Falcons, like in a snap after he left here. There's just been great, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Great athletes who become super quarterbacks here. And so that's the way he's built. He's very athletic, and we coach him hard. I've said this about Trinidad a lot. Like, Trinidad never gave an alibi, like never gave an excuse. Like, it was always, I go back to the national championship game. And at the end of the third quarter, I don't know, we were probably ahead 41-14. At the end of the third quarter, there was a reporter, I guess I had to do an interview at the end of the third quarter, and reporters asking me about, how's it going or whatever it is. And I was chewing on Trinidad still, it's like, Wait a second, coach, you're at 41-14, lay off, but Trinidad just smiled and said, I got you, coach, I got you. And so, we coach our guys hard, and we have high expectations for them. And Wyatt's the same way, like the other day, I think he had 5 touchdown passes in the first half and 1 touchdown run. So 6 touchdowns in the first half. And you get to the film and, it's like, okay, you made like 12 mistakes in the first half, dude, and he owns it all, and so that's the way it is. It's not, oh, you're the superstar. We can kind of ignore your mistakes. It's always critiquing, always trying to grow, Jason Vanderlaan, who was a 2-time Harlan Hill Trophy winner here, he came back and talked to our team. And he said, we were talking about leadership, and he said that I had to sit here in this seat, which is in the front row of the auditorium. And he goes, I had to sit there, and after we just whipped an opponent, get like coached hard by Coach Annese, and I never made an excuse. And that's just the way it is. When you're the best, you got to constantly, still continue to grow, because, the best isn't really your full potential. The best is only what you showed on that day. And so that's kind of how Wyatt is too. We've been able to, really grow here in the last, since game 1, but he was also had the luxury of taking almost all the spring ball reps, which is key, right? Because Trinidad was still here, but he had a minor procedure in his groin, so he was out. Carson Gawker had a lot of quarterbacking at this place. He had a season-ending injury the fall before, and so he was limited in spring ball. Chase Carter was our second-string quarterback last year. Once Carson got hurt, he had surgery in his shoulder, so it was like, okay, Wyatt, here you go, and he took a ton of reps and continued to grow in the spring.
Division II was created sort of as a kind of a middle ground between Division III, which has no scholarships, and FBS and FCS. There are 36 scholarships, right, for your program?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. What resource gap do you think matters the most at your level? Is it staff sized, NIL, recovery, travel? If you could close just one of those gaps tomorrow, which one do you think would add? I don't know how many more wins you could add, but which one would really help the program the most?
No, that's an incredible question. So my biggest criticism of NIL is it's still kind of a elitist circumstance, right? So who's the best guy? We got to give him the most money, Well, that doesn't help all student athletes. So if we're talking about, compensation for college student athletes, and we're talking about, like a level of equity, okay, what's the gymnast getting, or what's the volleyball player getting, or what's the soccer player getting, or what's the D2 or D3 football player getting? Nothing, okay, nothing. And so if we really wanted to help, and I don't care about revenue sharing and giving the best players, more money, but how about giving the players at this level, let's just say you give them, I don't care, maybe $4,000 a semester,
some kind of
I mean, that's $8,000 for every student athlete.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's helping. That's really helping all student athletes. So I've got players that don't eat, literally don't eat. And then I walk into, some of these places where I go and see, see what they're eating.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
And yeah, it's horrible. So, so maybe some of my guys left because they're like, Coach, I get to get this buffet every day, 3 days a week or 4 days a week, or I don't mean 3 times a day. I meant to say, we get to eat like kings. Yeah. And Coach, I don't eat all that much at Ferris because I don't have that kind of money, because if you take 36 scholarships, I'm doing my best to make everybody feel good, but it's not easy, right? Your money gets spread out and it's challenging. So if I could say, okay, NIL, it's super, players deserve to get paid, but take a chunk of money and give it to every athlete, because I don't know how much, the soccer players are getting, and give it to every athlete, and what it is, whatever it is, it's $3,000 a year. I don't care, just focus how many athletes there are across all sports through all divisions in the NCAA, and give them $3,000 a year. And that my guys would be like, yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, I can use that for a meal plan, because, some of our guys don't even have meal plans.
Wow. Do you pretty much divide up the 36 scholarships evenly between offense and defense?
No, we do it based upon what kind of other scholarships a guy has, because like Chase Carter from Edgewater, Florida, Edgewater High School in Orlando,
I know that
Florida.
high school.
Yeah, so Chase came here and he had a merit-based scholarship that was paid for all his tuition, because he had an unbelievable SAT score and great grades. And so we took that, and then we give Chase a little bit more to try to cover his costs, or somebody might have Pell Grant money. We try to take that.
So you can do partial scholarships.
Yeah. So we break it up in the best way possible to try to cover as many of the total costs we can.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you letting me into the fold, so to speak, to see what Ferris State does up close. Good luck this Saturday against Wayne State. And thanks again for letting our listeners know what's going on at D2 football, what's going on at one of the great powerhouses in college football today, and really letting us know, just what a winner looks like.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, Chris. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, this is Barry Sanders, the 1988 Heisman Trophy winner, and you are listening to the official Heisman Trophy podcast.
All right, we're back on the Heisman Trophy podcast. Our Division II extravaganza continues with Wyatt Bauer, the quarterback for the number 1 team in all of Division II. Welcome to the Heisman Trophy podcast, Wyatt.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, it's great talking to you. Hey, tell me about Ferris State. For people who don't know where it's located and don't know about what it's like to go to school there, tell our audience just all about Ferris State, or as much as you can in a couple sentences.
Yeah, Ferris State's a small town, Big Rapids, Michigan, located on the west side of Michigan. It's a great football school, great school around, great classes here. I'm obviously young, but I've had a great time so far. Reminds me of home, small towns feel, and we just got great athletics up here, so it's great.
What led you to choose Ferris State when it came time for you to decide where to go to college and where to play football?
Yeah, so little backstory here. I've known Coach Annese for, I think, since I was in 5th grade. He also graduated from Corona High School, which is where I graduated from. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to camps when I was young with him, when they hosted camps here at Ferris. And yeah, I had a couple offers from bigger schools like Colorado State and Central Michigan. I have a identical twin brother. We played football since we were young together all the way through high school. So our main goal was really to go together, and Ferris State just gave us the opportunity to play the positions we wanted and try to excel at that and learn. So that's why we ended up coming here.
So Coach Annese was a big part of you coming. The great success he's had, was that just a huge part of it as well?
Yeah, for sure. I knew they were a winning program, and I just wanted to win. So obviously I've known him for years, and he's a great guy. So I really just ended up winning, and that's really why we came here.
You redshirted last season as Trinidad Chambliss helped lead the Bulldogs to the Division II National Championship. What was that whole experience like, learning as a redshirt freshman, and then also seeing the work ethic and the standard that Trinidad was setting?
Yeah, Trinidad's been playing great, obviously. It's great to see him success, and he's a great guy all around. He was fun to be around at practice. I came in last year, and I ran scout team all year for the defense. It was just a great learning experience for me, just to be able to see how fast the game was and pick up things here and there. And then I transitioned into running with the offense starting last spring, and then into the summer, and that's where all that learning came from. And now I'm able to excel at what I'm doing and pick up on what he had to do for me. And I've always asked him questions, all that kind of stuff. So it's just been a great experience so far.
Well, you've done great so far through five games, 1,059 yards, 11 touchdowns, to go with another 374 yards and 6 scores on the ground. Are you about where you thought you'd be? Are you surprised at how well you're doing so far?
I really didn't know, honestly. I coming into the season, I really thought Carson Gulker was going to be rotated more in at quarterback. And Coach Neese never really told me what was going on, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. But, yeah, I really didn't know coming into the season. Honestly, I'm very blessed to be in this position to lead the offense and to lead this team so far. But, I just go out there and play my game and play for the guys around me and not be selfish. So, obviously, I'll take the scores when I get them and try to get the ball everywhere I can. So, but, yeah, really just trying to win, really. So, that's about it.
I noticed that after the press conference after the first game that you started, you mentioned that Coach hadn't told you that you were starting until I guess right before kickoff. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was like, I was nervous and everything, and he didn't tell me anything before the game. That whole week he didn't tell me anything. But he pretty much, I walked up to him right when kickoff was going. I was like, "Am I going?" He said, "Yeah, get ready to go." I was like, "Okay, here we go." So.
Yeah. Did it actually end up making it less nerve-wracking, not knowing until the last second?
I think it did. I tend to get a little worked up sometimes, and it was obviously my first college start, so it was a big deal for me. But I think it was a strategy for him to do that for me. Yeah. So, but yeah, I would say it helped a little bit.
It's kind of a perceptive thing on his part, right? Maybe he saw that you're the type of person who didn't need the extra pressure going in. Just talking to him, it seems like a pretty genuine guy. Seems to be pretty not very pretentious. Is that how he comes across to the team most of the time?
Yeah, he's obviously a great leader for this team. He holds a really high standard for us, which makes us accountable, and he'll hold us accountable for our actions and our play on the field. His big thing is about love for us and having love for everybody and having love for the team and their teammates. And obviously it's tough, but we always have love for each other, and we work our butts off at practice every single day to get better every day.
Yeah. One of the big things, obviously, that's been going on in college football these days at all levels transfer portal, NIL, all the issues surrounding that.
Mhm.
Is that just something that hangs over the season in a way that is it always seen as a possibility that there's an opportunity out there? How do you and your teammates approach that situation where you know that there's potential opportunities out there, and then does this create extra motivations, or is it a distraction?
I say it could be a little bit of both, but really, me personally, I'm not really worried about it too much right now. Obviously, we're trying to go 1-0 every single week, which is the goal. So, I mean, it could be a distraction. It could be different things. But right now, obviously, I think we all just are trying to make it to the national championship, which is the goal for the end of the year, and win that again. So I would say that's the goal for us.
And then finally, how would you describe your daily life as a Division II player and quarterback? Like, what is your schedule like, and how is it to navigate your life as a college football player with maybe not a lot of the resources that some other college football players have at other levels?
Yeah, it's tough playing at Division II level. Obviously, we don't get the necessities that we really need from, not really need, but from, say, bigger schools, obviously. But, it's tough. I have class a lot. I have taken 5 classes right now. So, but yeah, I'm always busy, always doing stuff. When I'm not at practice or watching film, I'm doing homework. So you really just wake up, watch football, play football, do school, go to sleep. So it's pretty much how it is on the daily, especially in season. But yeah, it's busy, but it's doable.
What's the one thing you wish you did have, like, with the facilities or with the program that would just make your life easier?
Our facilities are pretty nice. We got a really nice weight room. Training room could be a little bigger. I mean, it's not very big, but I don't really know. That's a good question. I might have to get back to you on that. I don't know.
No problem. Well, you play is it Wayne State this weekend?
Yes, sir. We play Wayne State at home this weekend at 1:00.
All right. Well, wish you luck in that endeavor. Good luck to you and your team the rest of the year. Wyatt Bauer of the Ferris State Bulldogs, thanks for coming on the Heisman Trophy podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Did you know that the Heisman Trophy Trust has donated more than $20 million to a huge variety of charity-based groups via its Heisman Trophy Fund for Youth Development? That's right, the fund has helped countless charitable organizations that uses sports to engage underprivileged young people in educational activities. If you are part of an organization or know of one that would like to apply for funding, visit Heisman.com and click on the charities link at the top of the site.
All right, our Division II extravaganza continues on the Heisman Trophy podcast with Chuck Bittner, the editor or one of the editors of Division II football, d2football.com. It's a great website to check out all the latest happenings in Division II football. Chuck, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. We keep it real simple for you. It's just one letter and one number, D2 and then football.com.
I'm sorry
thanks for bringing me on, Chris.
Sorry to mess up
No
your website name. It's fascinating to me, the other levels of college football, FCS 1AA, Division II, Division III. I'm curious what it was that drew you to being a Division II football expert.
Well, certainly from the start, it was just having attended a Division II institution. I'm a graduate of Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania, and small college football in general really appealed to me, Chris, because it's so accessible. Even our schools that do really well in terms of attendance, where you might get 10,000 for a game, 11,000 for a game, when that game is over, it's easy to get out. It's easy to get home. You can go down and talk with players. You can meet their families. You can meet the coaches. If you're a student at a Division II school, you can be classmates with the players. They're not as segregated or siloed from the rest of the student body as you might get at a large institution. So the accessibility of Division II football for both the students and the fans and the alumni. As an alumnus, I can go back and see the kids that are playing there today and go to the schools that we cover, and it's very easy to talk to them after the games. So that accessibility and it really allows you to develop a personal connection.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Is it something that's usually centered around the small college town model, pretty much?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are, but yeah, for sure, there's a lot of small towns you go to that have Division II or even Division III schools, and that's one of the most important industries and employers that's in that town. There's a lot of towns that exist pretty much only to support a small college or university, so it really does kind of make it part of that community. And where you really see Division II thrive with football or athletics in general. Is in a community that really embraces having that college or university there and really gets involved and supports it both financially and emotionally. When you really have that connection between a community and a campus, it's a really special thing.
It seems like a really interesting subculture in a way. How big do you think the culture around Division II football is? Like, how many people do you know who are also in Division II? I know you meet a lot of people through the website and probably on the message boards and all that, but did you have friends who are also into your favorite D2 team, and did they go with you to games, or did you have to sort of cajole them along?
Well, it's the whole mission of doing the D2football.com is to share the passion and share the enthusiasm, also to educate people. The guys that I do D2football.com with, a lot of us kind of have the same reaction, is that nobody comes into the world of Division II football knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
If you were a player, a high school player, or a parent of a high school player, of course you had aspirations of playing in Division I and what we see on television and all the pageantry and what you see on College Game Day. And the reality is, for most college athletes, that's not going to end up being the experience that they have. When they go to Division II, they just don't really know, how different the product is. And the reality is the product in the field isn't that much different. Everything that goes on around a Division II game, the environment, the pageantry, the passion, the traditions, all of those things are still there. It's just on a little bit of a smaller scale. So, nobody really knows about that until you become immersed in it. So, educating people and trying to share the passion that we have is a big part of what we do.
Yeah. What are some of the great traditions that you like to take part in watching D2 football?
So, it's one of the really enjoyable things about, being sort of a student of the game, so to speak, is to learn about those things and to be able to follow those. Last year, I got to see the Gorilla Walk at Pittsburgh State for the first time, which is where the team dresses and they have a facility where they dress and then they walk over to the stadium. And of course, all the alumni line up and everybody gets to walk through that. And, I was watching the kids do that, Chris, and I just remembered when I was, 6, 7, 8 years old and I looked up at the high school players, just how big they seemed. And it just felt like these are like NFL stars to me. Those are the types of things that are really cool. We actually showed a clip last week of the Bemidji State Beavers, who won their homecoming game this past weekend, and their stadium is right on Lake Bemidji. You win the homecoming game at Bemidji State, you go jump in the lake afterwards.
Fun.
They were pretty fortunate. They had nice weather this past week. I imagine it's pretty cold sometimes when they have that homecoming game. So, it's just like Division I, Chris. Every school has its own traditions. Every school has its certain things that make it special. Finding those things, and I still learn about them. There's things, I've been doing this for almost 20 years at this point. I still learn about some of those traditions that exist out there, and it's always fun to find those and see those little bits of the culture that makes it special for that school.
Who are some of the best players over the years that you've followed or observed on the Division II scene?
Well, there have been many, including quite a few, Chris, who went on to play in the National Football League. Kind of looking more recently and going backwards, one that stands out to me, Tyson Bagent, who won the Harlan Hill Trophy for the Shepherd Rams in West Virginia in 2021. He's now the backup quarterback for the Chicago Bears, having a phenomenal start to his professional career. Probably one of the best pure quarterbacks that I've seen play in Division II. When I go back before him, a player that always stands out to me, Jimmy Terwilliger, who won the Harlan Hill Trophy way back in 2005 at East Stroudsburg University. Probably just one of the best football players I ever had the privilege to see. and probably very prototypical of a Division II player, had all the talent and the work ethic and the skill set to play at a higher level. He was just a few inches too short and a few pounds too light, but everything else was there for him to have competed at a higher level. So, a lot of players like that stand out over the years. And particularly, I have a chance to see a lot of Harlan Hill players or players who eventually won the Harlan Hill. And certainly those are some of the ones that stand out the most to me.
For our listeners, the Harlan Hill Trophy is the Division II equivalent of the Heisman Trophy, so it's appropriate to talk about it on the show, a little kind of like our trophy cousins. I guess it's the sports information directors who select the Harlan Hill Trophy. What is the level of excitement like when they announce that winner around the Division II community?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a different process. The Heisman, of course, is media ballots, and there isn't really even a nomination process. We know how that goes. We get to the end of the year, and select members of the media just send to their ballot and say, here's my top 3 or top 5. But the Harlan Hill Trophy voting, it is a little bit different. Sports information directors can nominate a player from their team, and then the first round or 2 of the voting is regional. So we end up with 2 regional finalists from each of their 4 super regions in Division II. So we'll have 2 finalists from each region. I think by the time we get down to finalists, it gets really exciting for those schools to really think that, we've really got something to celebrate here. And then you really kind of see the intensity of the promotion ramp up at that point because the voting's not yet concluded. And it really does get exciting. And, that announcement, I've actually been in the room for a couple of Harlan Hill announcements. And even on the ones where I didn't really have any real emotional investment, you kind of get down to that drum roll moment and you sort of feel those butterflies in your stomach because somebody's life is about to change in a pretty significant way. So we do it a little bit differently now, but that feeling doesn't really change for me just simply because of knowing, and obviously with the Heisman Trophy, it's the same thing. This is a life-changing moment for someone. And so when you really can stop and appreciate that, it becomes just a really special thing.
Ferris State has won 3 of the last 4 national titles. We talked to Tony Annese, the coach there, a little bit earlier in the show. Where does this run by Ferris State rank in the annals of Division II football as far as dynasties go?
Yeah, we've seen the balance of power shift a little bit in Division II over the years. The run that they're on right now is as good as any we have seen in recent memory. 3 and 4 years is really special. It has been done before. Northwest Missouri did that. Grand Valley State did actually 4 in 5 years, which is actually what Ferris State would be able to accomplish if they could win that championship this year. That would be 4 in 5 years. So that's only been done once before. 3 in a row has only ever been done once in Division II. So it's, I say to folks who are at Ferris State, don't take this for granted. This won't last forever. And what's happening now is truly special. It's remarkable what they're achieving right now, the level of success that they've had since Tony Annese has been there. It truly is among the greatest runs we've seen in Division II history. So it really is something that you have to appreciate and enjoy and not take for granted because it's really something that is going to be history making probably here over the next couple of years.
Now, would you say that Ferris State is the favorite to win it again this year?
I do have to say that at this point, yes. I would have to say Ferris State. There are others out there who are absolutely ready to give them a challenge. The great thing about Division II, Chris, is we've always done playoffs the right way.
Right.
We've had a mature playoff system going back to the 1970s. So
great system, too.
It is a good system, and no matter what happens during the regular season, they could dominate everyone in the regular season. They're still going to have to get through some really quality opponents when we get into November and December. And they still have some tough games ahead too. They've got their huge rivalry game with Grand Valley State coming up. Saginaw Valley State always seems to find ways to play them well. And when they get into the playoffs, you're always playing good teams. Last year in the semifinals, Slippery Rock went up to play them. I think none of us really thought Slippery Rock had a good chance to win that game, and it came down to the very end. So, in a playoff system, you just never know what could happen. But yes, for sure, Ferris State right now, they have been our unanimous number 1 since the preseason. And they absolutely, at this point, are the favorites to win the championship.
I also like how in Division II, there's 11 regular season games. Is that correct? Like they all play 11, which I think is very important. You got to have the same number of games. You got to have the same number of bites at the apple. And I like how the season starts pretty early compared to, I think, some other levels, maybe a week earlier in some cases. And then it's over you're out of there before Christmas, right?
So I think
Or
that's
is it-
good for the student athletes. Yeah. So your playoff teams or your non-playoff teams are done in the middle of November.
Mm-hmm.
So and at this point, this year we have 32 teams that'll make the playoffs. This expanded field. So, but out of 165, most of Division II, those student athletes are done with their season by mid-November.
Yeah.
So you're done, and that's hopefully for most schools that's before your finals week. And for your teams that get into the playoffs, you still have a grueling couple weeks in the playoffs. If you're fortunate enough to go all the way, you're still done and out of there before Christmas. Now, I'm hearing that may change in the next couple of years. At this point, Division II is the only classification that is still playing its national championship before the end of the year. I'm hearing that may change in the not too distant future, which I actually do think that will be a good thing, especially for the two finalists. But to have that schedule that kind of gets you done before finals week, I think is important. And of course, the other thing that we're really seeing is the implementation of week 0, which started last year. So you have 11 games on the schedule, and some may only play 10.
Yeah.
But to play those 11 games in 12 weeks as opposed to 11 is really good for the student athlete experience. We have some conferences, Chris, that are actually going to mandate almost like a mini shutdown at midseason over the next couple of years to kind of give them that midseason break. So it's all built around a good student athlete experience, and that's what Division II is all about. Remembering that the first part of that is that these are students.
Right. There's got to be the big issue in Division II, I would imagine. Last 5 years or so with the transfer portal and the fact that you could, transfer without having to sit out a year, and NIL and all that stuff that goes on. Is it hard not to be resentful at the FBS coming in and swooping in and taking away your best players?
Yeah. And as you started to frame that up, Chris, you kind of projected like, we need to talk about this, but I don't want to talk about this because, NIL and the transfer portal, it has really started to dominate the landscape in college athletics and especially in football. I think we've kind of had to take the attitude of not being resentful. And if a player has excelled in Division II and has earned the opportunity to play at a higher level, if they're now sought after to play at a higher level, I think we have to try to celebrate that. No different than if a coach gets, tabbed to go lead a Division I program. We're sorry to see them go. We'd love them to stay and continue in Division II, but we're happy to see the success that comes along with that. So, would I love it if Trinidad Chambliss was still at Ferris State and was the overall, overwhelming favorite to probably win the Harlan Hill Trophy this year? I'd be having a ball watching him. But honestly, to see him excelling the way he has at Ole Miss, I certainly don't feel like I can be resentful of that.
Does the Division III and NAIA schools, do they get pissed off? Do Division II schools poach from them, and does that piss them off?
Well, I think you kind of see that happening all over college athletics. I think, kind of the villainous word that's out there with the transfer portal is tampering. I think that exists everywhere. The challenge for Division II is, how much of a work effort do you really put into doing something like that? One of the things that people don't fully appreciate, Chris, is how much smaller the coaching staff is in Division II compared to Division I. You only have 5 full-time coaches for a Division II football program. The rest of your staff is part-timers and volunteers. So, trying to really focus your energy on building your program the right way, recruiting high school players, I think is still an emphasis for most Division II coaches. And obviously you have to be able to leverage the portal no matter what level of football you're at. But I think we're still seeing most coaches really build their programs organically through, roster management, trying to keep the kids that they have and recruiting high school players.
Chuck Bittner is one of the hosts of Inside D2 Football, which is a show on YouTube, right?
YouTube, X, Facebook, pretty much all the socials, and that can be found on Sunday nights live at 8 p.m. And of course, recordings are available anytime after that. And of course, all the info you can find us on d2football.com, at D2Football on X, and I'm at D2Chuck on X as well if you want to give us a follow.
Awesome. I got to admit, I haven't watched a lot of D2 football over the years, but starting to get interested. I think everyone out there might be getting a little interested to see some great pure football, really interesting stuff. Thanks again, Chuck, and we'll see you down the road.
Happy to be here, Chris. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our Division II extravaganza. I don't know about you, but it seems like the big theme of this show was love. Thanks to Rob Bentley of Ferris State for facilitating our interviews with Coach Annese and Wyatt Bauer. Thanks to Chuck Bittner for coming on at such short notice. We'll see you next week, everybody. The Heisman Trophy podcast streams every Wednesday during the college football season and is hosted, produced, edited, and engineered by Chris Houston. The pod is available on all streaming networks, including Spotify and Apple Music, and features video interviews and bonus content on YouTube and TikTok. We also have a Reddit community. Special shout out to Isaac Lowenkron, and big thanks to Rob Whalen, Tim Henning, and the Heisman Trust for their support. Reach out to us via email at pod@heisman.com for feedback and commentary.